10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And good evening, welcome to Sunday Rum Day. Before I go any further, a big shout out to Charlie. Charlie's actually gracing us with his presence all the way from Australia. You must be up really early, or you're up for your middle of the night wee, one of the two. But welcome to Australia, Charlie. Who else have we got here? Philip. Let's go back to this comment first. Ross, Bingo, Ringo, Windy, Chris again, Jim, Kevin, Rachel, Philip. Nick, and then we can cross over to here. That's when we all come on live. So Sean, Pam, Neil, Jonathan, hello, how the hell are you? Hope that's a long, busy summer for you down south. Neil, Charlie, Karen, Gus, Steve, Chris, Claire, and Ian. Welcome. So tonight coming up, he's already here. We've already had a little bit of a chat. Absolute legend. I'm so excited about tonight. There's plenty of bottle kill going on here tonight, but we've got a bit more up here. We are going all things Cuban, but specifically Black Tears spiced rum and Progressiva, or 13-year-old Progressiva, essentially. So Pete Thornton is going to join us in a couple of minutes. This should be a very good live stream. If he brings the banter, there's him versus Dave versus Ash at the moment. Which one's going to be the big one, the big brand? So that is what is coming up in store tonight. We'll have a little play about with the audio levels before we kick in. I think I've nailed it, but we shall see. So, Jonathan, very busy, just opened a second venue with craft beers. What, in Portsmouth or Portsea, wherever you are? That's awesome. Darren, 18 months. Yeah, if you've got your members, if you've got your little badges, who's that? I can't see that on their stream. Is that? Hang on. Oh, let's get rid of that. Who's that? Darren for 18 months. Yeah, there's quite a few of you pushing on for the 2 years now membership, which is awesome. Is it just your picture that's rubbish? Windy, if it's your picture, I can see mine's crystal clear at home here. Just do your stream settings. Just bump them up to high def or HD or whatever. But I should be all right. I'm streaming 10 out of 10 connection here. So it might just be your settings. It might have just set it to auto to whatever it's 420 or 720 or whatever the hell it is. So just have a little play about with that tonight. We should be fine. I'm pretty much there. So Tom's here. Fuzzy. Okay. I think I'm fine. I'm crystal clear on my screen. So hopefully that should sort itself out in a minute. So I think he's ready and waiting, ready to come on. So I'm just going to bring Pete on for a second. Oh, he's tucking himself in. Are you ready? He's doing that. Let's bring Pete on and let's just sort out the audio volumes and all that. Right, Pete, if you say hello for a second.
Hello for a second. Hello.
Right, cool. Can we just, people at home, can we just set out the audio levels? If I need to take myself down or boost Pete up, I can do whatever. So just give us a little bit of feedback there. Pete, say something else again. And then
hello. I guess it'd be a good place to start, right? Thank you very much, Steve. Cool. First and foremost, for inviting me on. I think we've been on about this for quite a while. I think, have we not?
Yeah. Cool. Hang on a minute, Pete. Hang on a minute, and we'll come in. Bang on that, Steve. Awesome. Right, that's cool. Because what I'm going to do, Pete, I'm just going to chop it off now, later in the morning, and then bring you in. So when you can watch the replay, you can come straight into it. I just want to check the audio's fine. So, boys and girls, this is Pete Thornton, all stashed up with Black Tears there. Look, you can see that. So, Pete, say hello, introduce yourself. What do you do? How long have you been in the rum industry? What are you all about?
Oh, wow. Okay. How long we got? I'm Pete. I've been in the industry, the drinks industry as a whole, since the sweet old age of 16. When I started. Wow. Yeah, which depressingly will be 30 years next year.
You're not that old, Peter.
Oh.
You're never that old.
I know. Don't look it, right?
Wow.
So I started at 16. I've covered pretty much everything, if I'm honest. 16, like I say, glass collecting, got into DJing and bartending around about 17. Obviously, for legal reasons, I didn't bartend until I was 18. Sort of did the two parallel for many years. Bartending, got into bar management. predominantly during the daytimes and stuff, and then DJ'd for at least 3 to 5 nights a week on top of that. Yeah, done kitchens for 3 years. I've only ever worked in this industry. Okay, since I was 16 years old, I've never worked in another industry. Came out of bars 16 years ago to come onto this side of things, and yeah, became a brand manager and a marketing manager for various brands over those years. What is it now? Be about 13 years when I got into rum. And that was because I was given a rum brand to manage.
Are you going to say what that was?
Pardon?
Are you going to say what that was?
Yeah, Puss's Rum.
Yay!
Yeah.
This...
My first rum brand to manage was Puss's Rum.
This is how I first come to know about Pete. He won't know this because he was working for Cellar Trends at the moment at the time. But this is how I first, Pete was on my radar because Pete was one of the guys, or the guy, to bring Pussers into the UK. That was all Cellar Trends before. I forget when you offloaded it, but a few years ago. But yes, that's all Pete.
Yeah, but nearly 3 years ago. So I actually worked with those guys. I was the brand manager in the UK for that brand for about 10 years. Believe it or not, and grafted very, very, very hard to raise its profile and, you know, get it sort of more recognised by bartenders and consumers alike. To be honest, yeah, great brand. I'll always have a special little place. Good liquid as well. But you know, other brands include Botram, Bayou, Angostura for a little while. Yeah, loads of different rum brands over the years, which is amazing. And then I left Cellar Trends, like Steve said, and joined the Island Rum Company, or the Island Rum Brands, sorry, as they are now. And that would be 3 years on the 1st of December this year.
Wow.
Yeah,
this is
the first time ever I've worked for a brand owner. Which is very, very different, rather than working for an importer or whatever. So yeah, I work for the brand owners themselves. So I'm employed directly by the Island Rum Company, the Island Rum Brand, sorry. And yeah, I look after the UK, Ireland, and Northern Europe.
Wow. I put you on the big screen there because your home bar is getting a lot of love. And just before I get any further, I can't, if it is my screen that's fuzzy, I can't do anything about it. I'm rocking out at full meg, so it'll be my server somewhere. So don't worry about it. I can't do anything about the stream my side, but Pete, you're crystal apparently. So yeah, this is Pete's home bar. Look at that, look. And I can spot, I don't know whether he's going to talk about it, I can spot a slightly different black tears on the back bar there. I don't know whether we're going to come on to that, but yeah, the little blue label thing on there, we might come on to that a bit later.
This is top secret, Steve.
Is it? Oh, see, yeah. don't put anything, don't put anything like that in front of me.
In the UK, sadly, yet. But yeah, this is the DNA of Cuban rum, and this is aguardiente. So this is what all Cuban rum is based on. And in Cuba, we show this, I think, a little bit later on, but in Cuba, under this label, there is an aguardiente, there's a white, or which they call a silver dry. There's, of course, a black tea spice, but we also have a slightly aged variant as well, all under the same label, which are all available in Cuba.
Wow.
Not in the UK yet, sadly.
So yes, people, this is Pete's home bar. Pete became very famous during COVID because I think you went live Instagram, wasn't it? Every single week.
And Instagram, yeah.
Facebook and Instagram. Pete's Cocktail Hour, or whatever it was. Yeah. So that little setup there became very, very famous during COVID.
Yeah. And obviously for the screen purposes, it's actually 3 more shelves higher. It goes up into the apex of the roof, but it's actually 3 more shelves on top of that. And all that middle bit up to the top is all rum. But then, yeah, vodkas and liqueurs and whiskies and bourbons and tequilas, and yeah, we've got everything really. Everything.
Wow.
A lot of toys to play with.
So where are we going to start then? How do you want to kick this off? We've got, basically, for those of you that don't know, we've got all my lots. So we've got about, I think this is quite a big one actually. It's about 29, 30 of you have got little drams of this.
Nice.
What we've got is we've got Black Tears Cuban Spiced Rum, and we've got Progressiva, which is I don't know. I keep saying proper rum. I've got to stop saying proper rum, but rum. Let's just call it rum.
Because
that's proper. That's proper rum as well. So where do you want to kick off, Pete? Take us on this little Cuban sort of journey, if you like.
Yeah, I think again, like I said, I came into rum about 13 years ago, and I didn't really know much about it as a category. I knew of it mainly as a cocktail ingredient. Obviously, your usual suspects, daiquiris, coladas, mojitos, etc. I didn't really know much about rum. I'm probably one of those who's like, I don't like rum, but then you're loving plenty of mojitos and stuff like that. So yeah, whilst I was at Cellar Trends, became the brand manager for Puss's Rum, and at that time we only had two expressions, or they only had two expressions. We had the gunpowder proof 54.5, and we had the 15-year-old. So my baptism of fire into the rum industry, the rum category, was gunpowder proof, basically.
Wow.
Which, yeah, it sort of set my palate or destroyed it, either or. Depends how you want to view that one, I guess. But it certainly gave me an understanding and appreciation for big, proper rummy flavors, and then also, being Guyanese, just the craftsmanship behind it. So I'm all self-taught, to be honest. A lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of attending things like this, and listening to people like myself, but for other brands, which I still do and still love to do. But when it came to Cuba, genuinely hand on heart, I until starting with the Island Rum Company and these brands, like, I didn't know that much about Cuban rum, and it's hard to get information about Cuba, full stop, but certainly Cuban rum, right? Communist state, heavily controlled, heavily governed. So you really, really have to dig. Now, there are some good books. There are some really good websites and vlogs and blogs and things like that. But you do have to go digging for them. So it's not the easiest thing to learn about, really. So for me, the first probably 8 to 12 weeks that I started with these brands, I spent literally just reading and researching, and just became a bookworm again, which was awesome, to be honest. Ever since then we've been spreading the word and educating people more on the artistry and the craftsmanship and everything of Cuban rum. Now, there's some very, very strong, very, very good Cuban products on the market. Again, for the non-commercial ones, you do have to go looking for them, but there's more out there than you think, or you might be aware of. So it's definitely worth having a rummage. Now we have two products, like Steve says, and those that have got drams as well. We do have Black Tears dry spiced Cuban rum, and we have La Progressiva Mezcla 13, which we'll be doing separately. I have prepared some slides, which I think Steve is in control of. Just to try and make this a little bit more visual. All right, so you don't have to look at me all the time.
It's not 200 slides. Don't worry. We captured it at like 60. No, it's about 30. You just, I'll put this up. I can do that. You just, if you want me to fast forward or skip or whatever, you just say the nod.
Yeah. Also, it's gonna be like the COVID thing, is it? Next slide, please.
Next slide. There we go.
Okay, so the thing we have to do first, so if you're not familiar with Black Tears dry spice Cuban rum, this is what the full size bottle looks like. It's all very, very cool. You've got brilliant identity on the front. You've got some embossing on the side. That one there is Lagrimas Negras, that way around. And then on the other side, we have the Island Rum Company. So we know that it's produced by these guys. All the bottle iconography and design is actually there for a reason. It's not just because it's cool or someone in a design studio has designed it or whatever. It's actually designed specifically to tell the story of the brand and of the history, the heritage, and also the inspiration for this particular product. Okay, and again, I've worked in rum a long time. I've worked in the drinks industry a long time, and I've seen a lot of things come and go, and some really cool things and some not so cool things, and a lot of things that have been designed in a marketing suite with a great story that literally has been made up for whatever reason. The thing with this one is the inspiration for it and the backstory of it is as authentic and true and 100% Cuban as the liquid and everything else is itself. All right. Now, obviously, what we have to start with is the front of the bottle, right? We have to start there. So, Steve, if you could just go back to the presentation, that'd be awesome.
I can. Right. Let's do that one. That one?
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, as we know, on one side of the bottle, we have the Island Rum Company, which is one half of the people that own and produce this particular product, okay, which is why they're on the bottle. The other half of the ownership of all of these products is the Cuban government. Okay, this is all these products, including the other ones that are not available in the UK that we sort of mentioned earlier on. They're all done in conjunction with an official joint venture agreement with the Cuban government, and that is super important. Okay, because there's only one other joint venture agreement in place. Okay, with the Cuban government and a third party, if you like, or a foreign company, and that is Pernod Ricard with Havana Club. Okay, now that's like 29 years ago, something like that, when they signed theirs, and they've done all right. They've done well. So hopefully, we're in good stead.
Just sold the odd few bottles.
Yeah, I think I've heard of them. You see them around. So I think we're in good stead on that. The one massive difference between their joint venture agreement and our joint venture agreement is that ours is all built around this one product. Okay, and the one word specifically as well, which is spiced. Okay, now the journey, the story, and everything about this one particular product is actually 12 years old. Okay, the people behind the Island Rum Company, they got together and started this journey 12 years ago when they first spoke to the Cuban government, of which there are two elements to the Cuban rum production. There's the sugar side and the rum side, and you have to speak to both because it's Cuba. And, it's just the way things are. But just to make things a little bit more difficult, I guess. But you have to work with both sides and to be able to produce this. Now, because we wanted to lead with a spiced rum, they thought we were crazy. Like, what? No, absolutely not. Cubans are very protective, and and Cuban rum is very protected as well, which is brilliant, as it should be. All right, they're very good at what they do. But we wanted to lead with a spiced rum. Okay, and we'll come on to that a little bit later on. On the other side of the bottle, as I showed you before, we have two more words, which are Lagrimas Negras. Okay, and if there's anybody that is Spanish or speaks Spanish, I apologise now.
Hey, they're used to it with my pronunciations. Don't worry.
Yeah. I'm from Leeds. My Spanish is not that great, but I try. Okay, Lagrimas Negras. So, Lagrimas Negras it's the name of a song. All right, and if you want to go back to the slide, Steve, please, that just brings this to life a little bit more. Next slide, please. Cool. So this tells you the story of the song itself. So like I said before, there's a lot of products that hit the market. Some of them stick around, some maybe they don't. But they've been created in a marketing suite because someone's had a really cool idea. And they want to try and bring that to life with a manufactured story or whatever. Lagrimas Negras exists. It's true. Okay, it's a song that was written by the people you see on your screen now, and not me and Steve, the other ones. And they are the guy at the top is Miguel Matamoros, and he headed up a little group called the Trio Matamoros. Okay, and they were massive in Cuba, and they were very, very famous for being the first sort of Afro-Cuban group, bringing together three gents with different heritages from different countries as well. And they created this musicality and this sound that Cuba has never heard before, fusing together various different islands and styles, okay? They're really, really famous over there. And in 1928, they were touring Cuba, and they were actually in Santiago, down the bottom of Cuba there. And they were staying at a guest house, and they'd just done one of their performances, and they were back at the guest house. And from one of the rooms, Miguel heard this lady crying, this noise of a woman, heartbroken, uncontrollable, and unconsolably crying, and spoke to the guest house owner and says, like, what's happened? What's going on? But obviously in, beautiful romantic Spanish, not Yorkshire. And it was explained to Miguel that the lady had been ditched by her lover, okay? And she was absolutely devastated. And Miguel started to paint a picture in his head of what the lady looked like, what she was going through. And again, a simple internet search takes you to this exact story, okay? We haven't made this up. The lady actually appears on the back of every single bottle. Okay, she is the inspiration not only for the song, but for this liquid and this brand. When the Island Rum Company were putting this together, there was only ever one name for this product, okay? And it was Lagrimas Negras, because it's so infused today, so important to Cuban culture and Cuban people. So the lady, she was crying, and he painted this picture of her in his head. And in this picture, because she was so heartbroken, the tears that she was crying were black. Okay, black tears. On the front, we have Amor and Pena, love and pain. And the song itself is about love. It's the highs, the lows, the goods, the bads, the bits in between, the fear of losing it, the fear of never finding it. It's a powerful song, okay, when it first released in 1928. Over time, as things do, they take on a slightly different meaning. And today, that whole love, pain, highs, lows, joy, sorrow, etc., for the Cuban people, it's just more about everyday life. To be honest, let's be, life's a bit tough sometimes, as we all know. But hey, let's have a party and drink some rum. And that's kind of the Cuban mentality. So if you go back to the presentation again, if you would be so kind. So that just sort of summarizes what that's about. The next slide is actually the lyrics of the song. Okay. Now, like I said, it is a love song, or it was a love song when it was originally penned. Now, if you've got this on full screen, have a quick look through, have a quick scan through. It's interesting. I can't name many love songs that finish with lemon tree, lemon tree. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But you go on YouTube, and yeah, you'll see that this has got millions and millions and millions of views. This song, if we went to Cuba right now, we would hear this on the radio, people singing in showers, crazy old dudes in bright coloured outfits singing it on the corner. You'd hear it every single day. All right, it is super, super important to the Cuban people and their culture, their history, and just that message to each other of like, come on, let's make the best of what we can. Now, I think it should work. The next slide should be the actual video itself. Okay, so this is the song, which I thought would be quite cool for you to take your first sips of Cuban spiced rum and listen to the song behind it. Does it work, Steve, on your end?
I don't think it will do. Not only that, sorry, I didn't realise what that was. YouTube will probably kill me. YouTube
Okay.
will probably kill me if that goes live. So what I'll do,
No
people,
worries.
I've got the presentation, peeps. I will put that in Discord later tonight or tomorrow morning. That's all. All right.
Okay, no problem. Again, if you have some time at some point, just put Lagrimas Negras into YouTube, and it'll bring you the video, several videos. But yeah, you'll see what it's like. Like I say, it's one of if you went on Cuba's Got Talent, like people cover it all the time. It's just like, all right, off we go again. It's like somebody covering Adele over here. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's where it is. So it's not really what people associate Cuba to be. So Cuba is often, I think the next slide along actually is what you probably class as the more stereotypical view of Cuba. It's bright, it's sunshiny, it's the Cadillacs, it's the beaches, again, it's all the mojitos, the daiquiris. That is what Cuba is, the postcard image of Cuba. This isn't really about that. It's not for the tourists, it's not for the wish you were here crowd. This is for real Cubans. This is why it was created, to give Cuban people something that they can relate to, something that's important to them, but also something that is very, very different. They have never been able to walk into a store and buy a spiced or flavored of any sort rum, okay? Because Cuban rum law strictly prohibits that. Until now.
Hang on. So even spiced rums produced outside of Cuba wouldn't have sold those at all?
No, very rarely. You might be able to get Captain Morgan, but yeah, maybe.
Okay.
But no, not really. They can, if they went on holiday and duty free or whatever, they can bring it back, absolutely. But certainly, there won't be many spiced rums. Like I said, there'll be the big players. In fact, maybe not Captain Morgan, because that's Diageo, right? And they're huge American. Yeah. So again, with America and Cuba. So no, there'll be very, very little, to be honest. And also, Cubans are very passionate and protective about their rum, right? They like good rum. So to them, it's always just been just drink good rum. Like, why would you do anything with it? Which, you know, I get that to a point. The way that the world's gone, certainly over the last 10 years, with the gin boom and various other flavor profiles that have come and gone. You know, spice rum's been bubbling and bubbling and bubbling for a very long time, and by that I mean hundreds of years. You know, you go back to the sailors, the naval conquests, if you want to word it like that, of various countries, not just England, but of various countries. When they were moving rum around the world, it absolutely would have been in barrels that have housed other things. So yeah, Sailor Jerry didn't invent spice rum. Shock, believe it or not. But yeah, so sorry, Steve, if you can just flick back to the slides.
I've
So we've got this
forward.
beautiful romantic view of what Cuba is. Now, the one in the middle, that is the map of Cuba. I've highlighted 3 areas there, top, middle, and bottom. Top is Havana, the bottom is Santiago, and right in the middle is the province of Ciego de Ávila. That is where we are. That's where we are made, okay? It's in a little town called Fala. It's tiny. It's famous for 2 things. Pineapple and sugar cane. That's it. But yeah, and weirdly, but also quite cool, is that every year in that province there's a Pina Colada festival, which is 1 week festival celebrating nothing but the Pina Colada.
Oh, wow.
Sign me up. That's what I want to do.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm all over that. But yeah, it'd be wicked. So we are right in the middle of Cuba. And then next slide, please. To put a little bit more context into that. And again, thank you, sir. So the 2 stars, you've got the left star and the right star. The right star is Ciego de Ávila. That's where we are. You've got some little snapshots there of the distillery as well. And as you can see, it's very nearly 4.5-hour drive from Ciego de Ávila to Havana. It's a fair few hundred miles. You could do it a lot faster than that, except Cuban roads are shocking. So it does take a while. But yeah, and like you can see, there's just some imagery of the distillery itself. It's not, how should we put this? It's not gift shop ready. Shall we say? It's very rustic. It's very authentic. We only, to coin the phrase, we only got the keys for the distillery a little over a year ago, and we're still ironing out quite a lot of detail, a lot of red tape, what we can do, what we can't do, etc. Now, work has started on modernising the distillery and implementing health and safety, which is a first for this distillery. The distillery dates back to 1944, so it's a baby, really, in the scheme of things. You know, what we've got on this bar, what Steve's got on his bar, some of those distilleries go back to the 17, 18, 1900s, right? So this is a baby in the scheme of things. 1944, and then 15 years later, Castro and co came along, and the whole revolution thing, which pretty much damaged the distillery to nigh on extinction over X number of years, which, you know, it's a bit of a sad story. But unfortunately, it's part of Cuba's history, sadly. We actually have two areas. So again, if you just skip on to the next slide, Steve, thank you. So we have the distillery, the sugar mill, and the main production facility in Ciego de Ávila at the distillery. We only own the distillery and the aging houses. We don't own the sugar mills or anything like that, or any of the land. That is still owned by the government. But we also have this, which is a second aging house and a smaller production facility for blending, aging, and things like that, which is just outside Havana. This is where the older rums go, basically. So if they're going to lay stock down for a very long time, it leaves the distillery and it goes to this area here. And if you can see on the bit that's circled on your screen, the mass majority of all machinery in the distillery and the aging house is all from the Soviet Union. Which is post-revolution, when obviously the Soviets came along and helped Castro to build Cuba back up again. And that's a machinery that we're still using, believe it or not, which again, we're in the process now of sort of changing all that out. One of the cherries on a very rum-fueled cake of our joint venture agreement is that aging house there that you can see, or the two pictures with the barrels on, it's the tip of the iceberg. We have now round about just under 8,000 barrels of rum, which we're still dating some of it because the records are not very good. The markings on the barrels have come off or whatever, so there's quite a lot of it that's actually still being aged or traced to where it is, which is so cool. So hopefully we're going to find some gems in there. But it's all part of our joint venture agreement, and the Island Rum brands, along with the Cuban Rum, we own that now, and it's ours to play with and do as we wish. So next slide, please.
On it. There we go. Boom.
Thank you. So these three ladies are the ones who head up basically all the production. We have Cuba's very first female Ron Maestro. We have Cuba's very first female master blender, and then we have a strong team coming up the ranks, which are all female heavy. These ladies are beyond brilliant at what they do, and to be at the top of the rum tree in terms of production anywhere in the world is pretty unusual. To be fair, rum is a pretty male-dominant business and an industry, but to be a woman, a female, at the top of any business in Cuba is pretty rare. But to be a woman at the top of a rum business in Cuba is super rare. And we have two, basically, of Cuba's first ever, which is super important. And specifically with this product here, which is their brainchild, basically, their toy, if you like. They're behind everything, but this was their little toy. This was ours. This was theirs.
Sorry, he's pointing to the bottles just in case you can't see that. That's why I put that back on the big screen.
Oh, sorry.
Which one was theirs and which one was what?
So La Progressiva is their sort of little baby, their little toy. This was always the Island Rum brand's #1 priority. Let's get Cuban spice rum to the market. This is what we're going to do. Yes, the two ladies were integral in creating this, but this was their more sort of their passion project, if you like.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
The first time they were given carte blanche. Go and do what you want, ladies. But we'll come on to that. We'll come on to that.
Yeah.
So I've seen some great comments come through already. Next slide, please. It's like being on COVID, isn't it? Like,
it's only 3 slides left, people. Don't worry.
Oh yeah. Oh no, it's not death by PowerPoint at all. So I've seen some great comments coming through already about what people are getting. In particular, there was one about the chili. So in here we have a Cuban rum, traditionally produced. No cheap distillate, no cheap products, no whatever. They only make one rum. Okay, we know that it starts its life as aguardiente. This is basically under 2 years old. If this is over 2 years old, they can now call it rum. Okay, so in Cuba, any distillate under 2 years old, you cannot label as rum. If it's over 2 years, you can label it as rum. Okay, so the rums in here are actually a blend of rum. What Cuba do very, very well is they create rum base or rum bases. Okay, so it comes off still, goes into barrel for a minimum of 2 years. After that, it's up to you as a producer to do what you want to do with it. Okay, entirely up to you. You can bottle it and do whatever and serve it neat or whatever, or you can then start to blend it with previous batches. Okay, that's what the mass majority of all Cuban rum producers do. Okay, and we're no different to that. Okay, so this rum here is a rum blend, a rum base, containing rums between 2 and 5 years old. Okay, what they then do is they naturally infuse this with 3 ingredients, and pretty much all of them have been coming up on the right hand side in the comments there. There are only 3 ingredients in here. You can see them on the screen there in the presentation. We have cacao, we have coffee, and we have sweet chili pepper called ají dulce. Every element 100% authentically Cuban. Every element planted in the ground, put into the bottle on and from the island of Cuba. All right, no importing, no cheating, no exporting and cheating, nothing. The rum is produced there. Everything is farmed and harvested there. It's all done on and from the island of Cuba, which is why when I said before that this is Cuba, the world's only 100% truly authentic spiced Cuban rum. You know, full stop. Okay.
Wow.
So there's some really good comments coming through there. I'm going to join you in my tasting as well. And I hope, Steve, I hope you are as well.
I've got mine. Don't you worry.
Yeah. There's some there about the neat. You like it neat and with colas. You know, the great thing with it, and it depends which hat you wear when you're tasting anything, to be honest. First and foremost, you come in this with your rum hat, because that's what it is. It's a rum base, right? So what do you want to do with your rum? Where would you normally take your rum? Is it neat, or is it with a little bit of water or ice or whatever? Or do you go straight into a mixer? It's up to you. It's your drink, okay? Or you come to it with the other way around, which is the flavors themselves. Okay, so you put your spiced hat on and you start with the chocolate, the coffee. The sweet chili pepper for me is more there for sensation rather than flavor. Doesn't really bring much flavor profile, but it certainly gets the back of the tongue tingling a little bit. And I think I've, again, seen a couple of people mentioning that already, which is great. So for me, if I'm trying anything for the first time, I do everything neat. And when we do tasting sessions like this, we always advocate neat as well. It is a 40% ABV product, so you're not being shortchanged on booze. Hurrah! Which is a good thing. Why you drink anything less, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, it is 40% ABV, and there are 0 added sugars, flavorings, colorings, sweeteners, preservatives, nothing. Reason being, you're not allowed. It's as simple as that. Cuba strictly prohibits any of that. That's why it's taken so long to get a spiced, flavored, whatever you want to word it, rum produced in Cuba in conjunction with the Cuban government, because this is adulterating your rum post-production, which they don't agree with. Okay, we've had to jump through a lot of red tape and a lot of hoops. I'm sure there's been some envelopes passed, as it is, you know. Obviously, if anyone sees this in Cuba, that's not true at all. But yeah, it's taken a long time, and a lot of the conditions attached to the production of this is around the authenticity of Cuba and of the product. All right, so we're not allowed to bring in any ingredients or anything like that. You know, we work with specific farmers in specific regions for each ingredient. It's all traceable. It's all, you know, we can tell you everything about the cacao or the farmer there, because we have to, because the Cuban government can check up on it at any time. So it's very, very important that's the message that we get across, that it is all natural. I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this now or watching it back later that drink spiced rum, and there's so many of them, let's be honest, right? But the ones that are all natural, no added sweeteners, flavors, there's not so many of them.
That is absolutely beautiful. I love that. There's so much love coming in here on the comments for this.
Yeah, I can see. It's great tingling. I love that.
We do talk, like, I don't get me wrong, I love spiced rums. We do try and focus on proper spiced rums on here, but very rarely do we get a proper spiced rum like that, where you can actually pick where the ingredients have come from. And it's
yeah,
you know,
but also
you can see what I think of it.
Man, you should see how many empties I've got after lockdown.
Yeah, but you bloody work for the brand.
Like, honestly, anyone want empty bottles? I got loads of them. Yeah, no, the bottom line, right? And for me, like, you're drinking a rum, right? Whether it's flavored or spiced or whatever is irrelevant. You're drinking a rum, and you should always know what's in your glass. So it should be rummy, right? And that should still be there, not just flavored or whatever booze. It is important that this is a rum product first and foremost, you know.
Can I ask a question? I'm not sure whether I should, but I'm going to do it anyway. Can I ask a question about that? Because this hasn't got that. Yeah, this hasn't obviously got that, has it? Before we dive into what that is.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, you produce a rum in Cuba,
right?
No matter who you are, whatever, your rum has to have. I don't know if it's going to come through on this or not, but
Sorry, I didn't want to say anything in case we couldn't, but I'll try and get there because
it's fine. So at the moment, this one doesn't have it. There you go. Your lighting's better than mine. Very simply put, as you can see there, it's the Garantía. This is the Cuban government stamp of approval, basically. It shows that first and foremost, you adhere to every single element of Cuban rum law. You've made your rum properly, and it's kind of a tax stamp as well, to be honest. So yeah,
I know this is not yours, but just to say, we'll put
every bottle produced and shipped out of Cuba will have that. Okay. Now, at the moment, Black Tears doesn't have that because it's currently put together, the bottling. So it's all produced in Cuba, but the bottling itself takes place outside of Cuba. That's because it's cheaper to ship the liquid out of Cuba finished than it is to move the bottles in and then full bottles out, right? So it's cheaper. Some might say it's carbon footprint related.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, but it's probably not. So at the moment, it's not finished, as in like the cap is not put on the bottle of this in Cuba yet. Okay, by middle of next year, once we have to put the bottling line in. There's only certain distilleries at the moment that have their own bottling line, and a lot of the big companies have got grubby little mitts into those distilleries, so they don't really let other people do it. Okay, there's a lot of recycling that goes on in Cuba, and people will use other people's bottles and things like that. So our bottle is fully bespoke, as you can appreciate, both of them. So it's a very specific bottling line that we need. So it has to be done outside of Cuba at the moment. Part of the renovations, part of the updates that we're doing to the distillery is to put a bottling line in our distillery. Then this will have that.
That is going to be huge.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. If we go to Cuba, you can buy this in Cuba on a shelf, in a supermarket, in a store or whatever. In Cuba, this has 100% market share of the spiced rum category. It's the only one you can buy. Only one you can buy.
Yeah, but just as a marketing point from outside of Cuba, to be the, I mean, I know you can say it, but I don't know where the bottle is now, but you know, Havana Spice. We know Havana Spice is not produced in Cuba. We get that. Yeah. But to have the actual physical words, this is the only spiced rum you will get from Cuba. That is huge.
100% produced, manufactured, put together, etc., on and from the island of Cuba.
There's a question for you. I'll flash it up on screen. How much is it in Cuba?
I think I know which one you're going to ask.
How much is it in Cuba comparatively? Christ, God knows.
It's cheaper than over here. Well, actually, in Cuba, it's the most expensive, one of the most expensive rums you can buy. It's $10 a bottle.
Wow.
So to put that into context, Havana Especial is about $4.
How much?
About $4.
Holy hell! Let's move to Cuba.
Well, so again, the way that the Cuban government and the pricing and everything works, if we launched our own rum, right, Steve, and we put it to market, you can't change it. It's done, right? It's there. You cannot change it without starting the whole process again, okay? And that includes your pricing, right? So if you put a product to market at a certain price, you can't change that price. Things go up, down, whatever. Unlucky, man. Tough. And that's, we've gone in at a higher price point to allow obviously, you know, not I guess a loss of production costs or anything like that, but to allow for things going up and down, the volatile market and all the rest of it. That's become very, very paramount in Cuba, where at the moment, Havana are removing their 3-year, their white from the market because they're losing money on it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Now, it may reappear as something else.
You heard it here first. Pete says Havana 3 is going to disappear.
No.
That's what we heard.
Yeah, they're just losing money on it. So they're having to remove it from the market, rebrand it or whatever, and then bring it back.
Wow, wow, wow.
That's what you
I,
have to do. You can't just go up and down every 10 minutes, you know. But yeah, over there it's done.
there's another one.
That's an interesting
Pam.
comment there. The most expensive spiced by far. That's not true. There are more expensive spice rum on the market
Oh yeah,
than this.
hang on a second. Hang on a second. We can trump that. We can trump that. Let's be honest, people. Let's be honest. That's surely got to be the most expensive spice rum on the market. Surely.
How much is that one, Steve?
Oh Christ, about 50 quid plus. There is another one more than that, but
Plus the spice. Plus the spice is more than that, no?
is it?
Well, it's just their gunpowder proof flavoured, right?
Yeah, but it's not 50 plus quid, is it?
It's
Wow,
not far off. Yeah.
Jesus.
But no, there are other ones out there. And again, you know, what people do, how they make it, or whatever is entirely up to them. Again, for us being Cuba, it is all natural. You know, it takes a little bit longer to infuse the rum and to age the rum. You know, this isn't massively produced quick, stick a load of stuff in it, boom, you know, which, you know, sadly is what happened to the gin market, let's be honest, right? Yes, there's a lot of that out there, and this isn't that at all. So, you know, it is expensive in the scheme of a lot of things, but I'm a firm believer that you get what you pay for.
I've got a question for Pete, not for you, Pete. Sorry, I've got a question for two specifically at home, Karen and Pam, but everyone else. Like, there's a lot of talk about the spices in here, but for me, this is actually a really neat a sipper. I would quite happily sip that neat. I know there's a lot of you that will drink that, but Karen and Pam, I want to know how you're getting on sipping that neat, or whether you feel that you have to mix it, because that'll be quite interesting. Because for me, that is. And this is what I love. I've gone down this Cuban rum sort of rabbit hole recently. I absolutely adore Cuban rums, but they're just full of flavour, but so soft and mellow and easy going. And I love that about Cuban rums, really do. And this for me is a sipper, but with a little hint of flavour to it, if you know what I mean. I wouldn't call it. It is a spiced rum.
Yeah, 100%.
But
It says on the bottle. But again, with this, the great thing is, and again, I think it's not necessarily just with this particular product, but any good liquid, with the quality of its production, the more you sip neat, it should do a few different things to the mouth. First and foremost, it should stay there, right? It should stay in the mouth, right? Because that then means that every sip you take, it's just going to layer and build and layer and build and layer and build. So the more you sip, the more your head and your mouth start talking to each other, and it goes off then in God knows how many different directions. That's then when you get into the fun of, could it work with this, or could I do that? And the answer is yes, just do it. Like, what's the worst that could happen? You know, if you mix it with something and it doesn't work, drink it anyway. Just don't do it again, right? If you mix it with something and you love it, tell everybody and drink it again. Like, it's so good at what you do. And there's been a lot of people in the comments there saying not sure what to do with it. I saw one about can't compare it against anything else. And I totally agree with you on that one, because there is no real competitor right now at all. A, because it's Cuban and all Cuban, but B, because of how it's made and how it's all the production processes behind it. There isn't. Don't get me wrong. There's some chocolate rums and there's some coffee rums and there's some but they're not comparable, really. And I'm not saying they're better or worse. I'm just saying they're not comparable.
Are we going to talk about sort of Cuban rum production with this? Are we getting into the whole aguardiente and that with this?
Yes, we touched a little bit on aguardiente. I'll bring it to the front again, just to tease you.
My whole point was I didn't actually know whether it was relevant to that or not, or because I'm not actually sure how that's made, like how the base rums come from that.
So basically, you get in Cuba, you get your sugar cane, you squeeze it, you get the juice out of it, you ferment it, you right? You make your rum in the normal processes. We actually have a double fermentation process. We have one which is a slightly smaller batch of ferment at a higher temperature, and that kickstarts the fermentation process and creates a lot more sort of deeper, more burnt sort of flavor profiles. Okay, dark, deeper profiles. That batch is then transferred to a larger fermentation tank, which is done much bigger, much slower. So it goes through 2 different fermentation processes. Okay. Then it goes through a normal distillation process. There's nothing untoward about it. Cuban rum is all columns still, if anyone was just about to ask. Yeah, there's no pot stills, certainly that we're aware of, that are working for production in Cuba. All right. Now, there may be some somewhere in the back of someone's distillery or whatever, but as far as we know, there are no production pot stills in Cuba. Okay. Very quick process, really. It's what it is. Distillation doesn't really take that long. Comes off the still somewhere in the region of 72-74% ABV and goes straight into barrel. Okay. Well, like I said, it has to sit in that barrel untouched for a minimum of 2 years for you as a rum producer to be able to label it as rum. If you take that rum out of the barrel before 2 years, you have aguardente. Okay. Now, nothing wrong with that. This is banging. It's great. This is also 40% all natural, great stuff. But it's aguardente. It's not classed as a rum because this is not 2 years old. Okay. Once you get to 2 years, you can do what you want. Okay. Nearly every rum producer does 2 things. They keep what they class as true age stock. Okay. True age is exactly that, right? It's not blended. It's not anything. Or they'll blend it with bases, or the madre, the mother base, ron base. It's up to you as a producer what you want to blend it with, how many times you want to blend it with, and then whether you want to age that blend as well, right? You don't have to blend it and bottle it. You can blend it and then age that blend, right? So it is quite a complicated process without, I mean, I do have a really good proper nerd alert presentation on Cuban rum production, and I kid you not, it took me a while to get my head around it. Like some of the flow diagrams and this and that is just like, whoa, okay. It is quite complicated when you try and explain it, but to Cubans, it's just the way they've been doing it for hundreds of years, basically. Now, you could argue, given that Cuba's native tongue is Spanish, they've been, a Spanish colony for centuries, pretty much all of that time, give or take a few little glitches along the way. You're blending rums of varying ages, whether you're creating a base to age or whether you're creating a base to bottle, but you're blending rums of varying ages. So you could argue that what you're actually doing is Solera blending your rum. You could.
Ooh.
I know.
Ooh.
Right? Which is another potential swear word when you speak to people about Solera. Personally, I have nothing against Solera products, Solera rums. But these are blends of rums of varying ages, all right? Or they're the blends of rum bases, which contain rums of varying ages, right? So, but because they're not putting an age statement, a year or whatever on the bottle, you don't have to label it as such. Okay, especially when it's a spice, right? That's what you're leading with, yeah? It's a spice rum. That's what you want people to know, okay? So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question. Does it help a little?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, we've gone down the whole Aguardiente Destilado kind of, well, I have, the whole sort of rabbit hole a little bit, chatting to people about their Aguardientes. It was interesting. You said 72 to 74. I thought Aguardiente had to come off the still at 75 or higher.
Again, it's up to you as a producer.
Okay, I thought that was part of the law. I thought Aguardiente had to be like the 75.
No,
okay, that's
again,
interesting.
it depends on the vast majority of all distillate that comes off the still will be about 72 to 74, maybe 76 or whatever, somewhere within that region. So yeah, but with Cuba, it's about age.
It is worth pointing out to some people watching as well that if you went to, say, Puerto Rico, to Dominican Republic, and a lot of these column stills, a lot of these rums on column stills will actually be coming off the still are a lot higher ABV as well. You're talking 80s, 90s, and when you
Yeah,
get to that, when you get to that proof, you're kind of stripping back a little bit of flavour. So with the whole sort of lower ABV, sort of 70, well, say 75% ABV, you're kind of getting more flavour from your column still than you would mass producing at 80 or 90% ABV.
yeah, and
I
you
think
can
that's
also, depending on how many times it's been distilled, the more it's distilled, you'll tend to get higher rums as well, higher ABV rums as well. But again, the distillery that we have, the Verona distillery in Fala, there's no more than double distillation, like ever. They don't do it.
Cool. There's a question just coming from Tom. So is guardiente a general Spanish term, or is it specific to Cuba?
Spanish, yeah. Aguardiente. It's also Portuguese or whatever. You know, it's that sort of Spanish. It's just firewater, basically. That's what it means.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
That's what it translates to. Which, if you go back through the history books, when the explorers found the New World, that's how a lot of them described this liquid as firewater, because it burned. Obviously, back then. It was a little bit less refined than what we have today. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still some pretty unrefined stuff out now, to be fair. But certainly back hundreds and hundreds of years ago, you know, you made your distillate and you drank it. Or you traded it. Yeah, no one was like, right, we've got nothing. We've not even got a roof on our house, but I'm not going to sell you my rum. I'm going to keep it. Not a prayer. It was sell, trade. So yeah, it was pretty unrefined. Kill Devil, Firewater. You know, there's a lot of very cool descriptions of early rum production that you can find out there, and that's all Aguardiente is.
Right. Okay. Cool. So yeah, it's just because I've read. And I've also been told a few other things by some other brands as well about Aguardiente and the passion behind that goes into the actual base Aguardiente on there. And I thought, so when we're talking, and I mean, it might come up in this, but when we talk about the Destilado is like the lesser quality rum of that. It's either like goes through the distillation again, or it's the heads and the tails, if you know what I mean, of that.
Yeah,
sort of.
Again, it depends on the producers themselves. It can be the heads or the tails. It can be a blend of the heads and tails. It can be the bits left over or whatever, or it can be just what they class aguardiente as: it raw, unrefined, unaged, fresh off the still, bosh, done. It's, you know, it's not a lost in translation thing. It's just how you want to word it versus how I want to word it. Now, there's something that just popped up there about aguardiente less than 2 years. Yes, is the short answer to that. If you have a distillate, and you want to do something with it, if it's under 2 years, you cannot label it as a rum. Okay, if it's over 2 years, you can label it as a rum. However, if you as a producer want to have aged aguardiente, you can call it that. You don't have to call it rum. You can say it's aged aguardiente. It's up to you. Yeah, and that's another thing. You're just like, well, but it's rum though, right? No, we want to call it aged aguardiente. But that would be rum, wouldn't it? It's like, so yeah, it's certainly not the clearest countries or whatever, but it's also what makes it quite cool as well. You know, they're not. I know you put about the GI there. Yes, they're very, very. So the Cuban Rum law was written in the 1820s, and it still stands today, right? And yes, science has evolved and techniques have evolved and blah blah blah, but the fundamentals for Cuban rum production, you have to adhere to the Cuban Rum law that was written in the 1820s, and that was written after a very, very, very long, essentially a competition, right? Like Cuba's Got Talent, but with booze. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, do you know what? And I'd sit and watch that. Not this dross, but anyway. So yeah, the Cuban dignitaries, the power leaders, if you like, of Cuba, along with the royal family, the monarchy of Spain, ran this competition through Cuba for somebody to create the definitive style of Cuban rum. Okay, they were so far behind after being selfish with their rum, or actually banning the exportation of rum out of Cuba, and that was by the Spanish monarch at the time, who banned Cuban rum being brought out of Cuba, certainly to Spain, which damaged them massively. All right. Now, by the time they realised, actually, do you know what? We can make a lot of money out of this. We should do it again. They were massively behind in terms of quality and science. And you look at all these other countries that were finding the Caribbean, but they were bringing in distillers and scientists and alchemists and all of this to make things better. And Cuba just didn't do it. Or the Spanish didn't do it. So they ran this competition and literally like, right, come on in. Tell me what you've done, why, and why this is Cuban rum. And this went on and on and on and on and on and on. And then one day, this chap turned up with his rum, talked them through it, what he's done and why and how, and this is what Cuban rum's going to be all about. And it was all Cuban. It's all 100% Cuban. It was I think at the time it was also a double fermentation process. It was a minimum of 2-year aging and and the chap that helped to shape Cuban rum law, to write Cuban rum law, was a little chap, Don Facundo Bacardi.
We know that name.
Yeah. But yeah, he is, he and his family, his team, are pretty much responsible for writing or setting out Cuban rum law.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow,
back in the
wow,
1820s.
wow.
So these and anything else that comes out of Cuba is absolutely built on the fundamentals of what that is, right? So it has to be all Cuban. It has to be minimum 2 years old. It has to be all natural. At the time, it had to be a minimum of 40% as well. Hurrah. However, you can get Cuban rum slightly less than that now, which is not a bad thing. It's fine. It's certainly when they come to exporting it or whatever, there's probably tax reasons and stuff in that as well. But yeah, so there's a lot. I mean, it's a hefty document. And again, on the full-on nerd alert presentation that I've got, there are quotations from this rum law on certain slides that tells you what you have to do and why and stuff. It's very cool. Maybe for another night, that one, Steve. Part 2.
Right then. But yeah, part 2. Hey, mate, you're more than welcome. Bloody hell. Right. Are we what? So right. Okay. So we're moving on to. I can't even say it properly. How do we say it? La Progressiva. Progressiva.
La Progressiva, and it's underneath. It says Mezcla 13. Okay. So I did see something crop up earlier. I'm going to address that first and foremost. Okay. So this is Mezcla 13. For any Spanish speakers, this mezcla translates to mix or blend, and that is what this is. It is blend number 13. We're not, which is why it doesn't say anything about Solera or aging or years or anything like that. This is simply La Progressiva blend or mix number 13. Very simply, as you can imagine, there were X number of blends put together, and it was a case of, right, which is best? Let's taste it, let's analyze it, let's put it out there, which is best. And everyone was like, oh, we like this one. Okay, blend 13. Okay, cool. What should we call it? Blend 13. Cool. So it must have been like 5 to 5 on a Friday when they were having this meeting. They were like, yeah, blend 13 is fine, move on. So La Progressiva, as we said a little bit before, when the two female, the blender and the distiller, when we got the keys to the facilities, and they've got full access now to all this liquid, okay, full access, and it was a case of, right, what do you want to do? What should we do? What can we do? How can we do this? And they were given 100% free rein, right? You do whatever you want to do, okay? And La Progressiva, again, the translation of that is progressive or the progression. And there was this term all the time that kept cropping up, specifically from these two women, about how crazy it was that they've been given this opportunity, this freedom in Cuba, in a heavily male-dominant industry, to be able to do what they want to do. Okay, and it was about how how progressive this was and how forward thinking it was, and that's where the brand name came from.
Right.
Which is cool.
Okay. Yeah. No, I like that. That's cool. That's sorry, there was another question that come up here because this is 41% ABV, isn't it? Yeah, 41. Do you know off the top of your head what the Cuban limit is on the ABV?
So again, the original Cuban rum law was it must be 40%. Right?
40.
Now you can get lower than that, and you can get slightly higher than that. Anything over 40 is classed as really super premium. And like, woo,
Right.
like,
Okay.
fancy. 1%. Come on, we could have done better than that. But obviously, again, when it comes to blending this particular product, the ABV is slightly lower than when it goes into barrel, obviously. So in here, there are actually it's two rum bases, okay?
Right.
And these
okay.
two rum bases contain rums between 11 and 15 years, okay, between the two bases themselves. And then they blend these two together. So in here, you have rums between 11 and 15-year-old, okay, which have been rested as blends, okay? They're not.
Oh, interesting. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So there is two rum bases that have been put together and then rested, aged again, and then they've been mixed themselves. Okay, so it's two different rum bases that cover 11 to 15 years old, 41% ABV, and Cuban filtered water. It's as simple as that. Yes, in here, in the black tears, the dry spiced Cuban rum, we've got the Cuban rum, we've got the spices, we've cut it down to 40%. Cut's just a fancy word for diluted, let's be honest. But it sounds better. In here, you've got rum and water. That's it. Zero additives, sugars, preservatives, Black Tears Dry Spice Cuban Rum, you'll find no more than 9 grams of sugar per liquid litre overall, right? We're not talking added or anything like that. That's overall as a product. In La Progressiva Mezcla 13, you're looking at 5.5 grams of sugar per liquid litre overall. Okay, not added, not spooned in or anything like that. Just natural residual sugars within the product. Okay. Personally, I'd have liked to have seen this at maybe 43, 44, 6. But that probably says more about my palate than anything else. There's some great comments as well, like coming up about this already. So Black Tears Dry Spice, as we said before, we've bounced some ideas about how you can mix it, etc. I've actually sipping on a little mule as we started, which I've neglected now because I've been talking, but works really well as a Cuban mule. In cocktails, the mojito is really, really good. Colada, as you can imagine, is great. But switch out your rum for a daiquiri and put this in a daiquiri. There's a drink called the Tears of Mary Pickford, which is my own fair creation. And one that we did a lot actually during lockdown. 2 cocktails a week for 61 weeks. So we've got a lot of suggestions for this one in particular. You can have a lot of fun with this one. My brother and I, we have our own bar in Halifax, and this features quite prominently on our menu, as you can imagine. But it's in about four of our rum cocktails, and the Tears of Mary Pickford and our espresso martini. This is the main rum of that. And it is epic, okay? And it is the only product. We don't have any other rum in there, okay? It's just black tears, coffee, sugar, and in an espresso martini, it's amazing. Have fun with it. This one, La Progressiva, is what I call me time rum, okay? Me time in a room that's quiet, no kids or anything, and just a bottle. Let's be honest. And no, we'll have a glass as well, whatever. But yeah, they're very, very different occasion, very different usage. Don't get me wrong. You put this into something like an old fashioned or a Manhattan or a Sazerac, it makes a really good Mai Tai as well. They're quite a pricey Mai Tai, but it's a good Mai Tai. Again, you can do a lot with it.
I was on Manhattan with Angostura Amaro just before. That's what that is. Before we started.
Yeah.
That's
it's
absolutely delicious.
Really good in a Manhattan. really good in Manhattan. But then saying that, black tears in a Negroni is amazing, genuinely. Like, so I went to into Amsterdam. We did our importer in Amsterdam did a trade show over there recently, and the whole point of what we did on their stand and everything was take spice rum, but we did old fashioned, a Negroni, and a Sazerac, and it was to showcase a rum that not many people have heard of from a category that they probably felt didn't deserve to be in the classic cocktail category, but how you can make really good classic drinks with a spice rum. Whereas with this one, I mean, it's your drink. Enjoy it how you want to enjoy it.
So,
but, wow.
Can we just sort of clarify then how the Progressiva is made? Is it so? I'm assuming in I was going to say the warehouse. That's not the word I'm looking for, but the aging. Where is it? Aging house. There we go. There's lots of different barrels at different ages. And the ladies there were kind of just playing about and blending a few barrels here and there and came up with it. How?
Yeah, so in your aging house, you'll have banks and banks and banks of true age rum, untouched, right? That barrel is exactly what it says on the front, right?
Right, okay.
Put in there and it has never been touched since, all right? True age rum. You'll also have areas in a warehouse or an aging house that are rum bases. So blends. Now so when you look at the front of a barrel, if you've been to distillery tours or anything like that, you'll see that they chalk things on the barrel, right? Dates and stuff like that. On these barrels, they will have when it was blended and what it's been blended with. All right. And that's them then blending rums of varying ages, but resting those blends as well. They might only rest them for a few months. They might rest them for many, many, many years. Right? It's up to them. It's up to you as a producer. They might only rest it for a week, right? But it's up to you. Is that? This is a blend. Like I say, you've got 2 different rum bases, which contain rums that have been aged for between 11 and 15 years. All right. The bases themselves were made out of rums. So one is between 11 and 13 years, and the other one is 13 to 15-year rums. Okay, so 2 bases, we know that. And then those have been rested. Yeah, the 2 different rum bases have been rested. Then they've been blended, rested for a little bit longer, less than a year though, because we don't want to increase the age. Once it's been blended, they don't add more age to it. And then they bottled it at 41%.
So the bases themselves could actually be, even though you say between like 11 and 15 or well, whatever it was, 13 and 15, the bases themselves could actually contain 4 or 5 different rums. Yes. Or just 2 different rums. It's just that blend.
Yeah. Wow. So you're putting together rums of varying ages, right? Yeah. So this is, to me, this is a kind of Solera blending. Right?
Yeah, I totally get it. It.
But what you're doing then is you're blending your blends, basically. Yeah. So what you've got then is, so if this blend here has rums between 11 and 13 years, and this has rums between 13 and 15 years, right, cool. Well, let's put those together then into one bottle. So you've now got a blend which contains rums between 11 and 15 years, right? Now, once you've blended those together, you can go, cool, that's it. Boom, bottle it. Let's go. Or you can go, that needs to rest a little bit, right? And then it's up to you as a blender, you as a master blender, to go, not ready yet. No, not ready yet. Today it's ready, right? Yeah. It's up to you.
I think I totally get the sort of similarities to Solera, but what my argument against comparing it, yeah, you could compare this to Solera, but my argument against comparing it would be with Solera, you're all the time topping up with Cuban rums, or this particular, you can actually identify the ages that you're blending together.
Yeah. So
with,
when you say
with Solera, with Solera, you kind of wouldn't be able to pinpoint actually what a barrel is because it's all the time.
So that's Solera aging, not Solera blending.
Sorry. Right, okay.
Yeah, 2 very different things. So when you go from top to bottom, right? So your young rums at the top, your older rums at the bottom, your top. That's Solera aging, because you're aging everything together, right?
Yeah, I'm with you.
If you take all these are different barrels, right, and they've all got different rums in them, and then I'm going to put them all together, I'm blending rums of varying ages. That's Solera blending.
I'm with you. But then,
Two very different things.
But then, or am I just being stupid here? Wouldn't Solera blending be most rums that aren't single cask?
In theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at the definition.
Let's just pick on him. Let's just do it. Like Dawley's 12-year-old is going to be a blend of 12, 14, whatever. So you're
blending rums of varying ages.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
There we go. Right.
So yeah, you look at the definition of Solera blending, and it is about you blending rums of varying ages.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. A few years ago, it was at the Spirit Show, I think it was, and I hosted a talk on the main stage, and it was called "Is Solera a Swear Word?" And it's brilliant because you mention Solera to people, but certainly like the enthusiasts, and boom, does it go crazy. It's brilliant. It's like chuck a grenade in there and just stand back and watch them go. There's been comments as well about Solera saying some of their favourite rums are Solera and whatever. There's zero wrong with Solera rums, but what you'll find is that a lot of the Solera rums on the market also add a lot of sugars and sweeteners and stuff as well. And I think that's where the majority of arguments come from for Solera rums. It's not necessarily the blending of the liquid itself. It's the other things that they chuck in.
Yeah.
Which for Cuba, we're not allowed to do.
Yeah. I think there's a kind of probably two or three, a handful of brands. Let's just say a handful of brands that kind of give Solera aging a bad name or a bad reputation, because you kind of associate, because they're so big, you kind of associate Solera aging being the same as that. But yeah, I totally get you.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's been going on for centuries.
Do you know what? That I think that is the first time I've heard Solera blending being mentioned. But when you say it like that, virtually 90% of the bars, 90% of the bottles I've got behind me, you could quite easily call Solera blended. Because the whole purpose of my channel is rum under 50 quid, so I don't really have that many single cask rums. I've got a couple, but not many. So all these rums are blended, and of course they're going to be Solera blended.
Yeah,
absolutely. I like what you've done there, Pete. That's quite interesting. That's thrown a few grenades.
Some cats into their pigeons. That's what we do. That's it. Let's get a proper discussion going.
Wow. Yeah.
No, it's down to wording or interpretation of wording or whatever you want to do. Obviously, I've worked with Solera products in the past and True Age products in the past, and if you're into rum, cool, man. If you're enjoying what's in your glass, brilliant. Like, does it matter, right? No one's got the right to tell you otherwise, but just know what's in your glass. And it's people like myself whose jobs it is to give people that information.
This is absolutely delicious. This stuff. I'm getting, every time I come back to it, when I finish the glass, I don't know who it was, but I saw a comment up there about the sort of nail varnish, the acetone. When I finish the glass, I totally get that off the glass. I don't get it off the rum, but I get it off the residue in the glass.
Yeah, so that's your esters. In production, right? Which is good. And again, the clearer the esters and things like that in your rum, it's not masked. If this was pumped full of sugar or whatever, you wouldn't get that at all. Okay. But we've done this a few times where empty your glass responsibly. Obviously, and leave it for 10 minutes. Leave your glass empty. Good luck with that, by the way. But just leave it for 10 minutes, and then come back to it. You can still smell the rum.
The Black Tears one is amazing. That's been empty now for however long we've been doing that. Yeah. That's amazing. The Black Tears one.
But you can still smell it. You smell all the flavors, all the coffee, all the chocolate. all right, it might take a couple of smells, go back to it a couple of times, but it's still in your glass. And like yourself, this has been empty since 20 minutes or whatever. I haven't covered it. It hasn't been kept there so that it keeps the flavour in or anything. It's open and it's still there. And again, that is all about the quality of production and the quality of ingredients that are used, that because they're not artificial or laboratory created or whatever, they're heavy. They stick around a lot more,
I'm interested about the Progressiva. So I've got a few questions to throw at you here, because I've seen something. I think you might have been the one to say it to me as well, but there's something else coming. There's another.
Yeah, so
extension?
not fingers crossed. It's done. It's bottled. It's ready.
Right.
It's all done in Cuba, and we have a 100% 8-year-old under the same label.
Okay.
Under the same label. It's the same ABV. Again, I'm a bit gutted about that. I'd like this.
Have you? So here's the other question that can dive straight into this now. Have you tasted some Cuban rum? Because obviously, for our end, we never really get to taste the Cuban rum at a stronger ABV. The only one, obviously, is Havana. Well, I've got is Havana. I'm always going to call it Cuban barrel proof, but whatever the hell it's called these days. Selection. What's it called? Selection de Maestros. Yeah.
No,
have you ever tasted?
Personally, I've not tried anything other than what I've currently got access to, and Selection de Maestro, obviously, as well. But now, not dropping this for any other reason, but at the end of November, we are going to Cuba to visit the distillery and everything like that. So, which I can't wait for. It's my first time in Cuba. Certainly my first time with these guys. So yeah, I'm like, let me try everything.
Because I was going to ask, have you tasted that, like the Aguardiente, like 60% ABV or anything like that? And it's
not yet.
So why? All right. So I know you've got the little bit of history and stuff, and you've done the research, but why is Cuba 40% when we've got in a world where we could get Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica at like 60% or whatever? Why would Cuba be 40% ABV? I love it. I get what you're saying about the extra ABV, like the 44, 46%, but why 40?
I think the extra ABV probably, like I say, it's probably more about my palate than anything else. Yeah. But so again, it just goes back to when Cuban rum law was written, and at the time, Don Facundo Bacardi and the Bacardi family and what have you, when they made this rum, they were like 40% is the mark. It's the sweet spot. This is where it should be at. And it was always 40%. It's just the way it is. Now, don't get me wrong. Other producers, certainly in times gone by, with moonshine or some guy making it in his yard or whatever, who knows how strong it was, yeah, I'm sure there are other people making other products at different ABVs.
I'm just curious because the rum maestros, they're kind of held in such high regard that kind of makes me think why no one's sort of pushed it, especially over the last 10 years, to kind of come out with higher ABV rums. And there's part of me that really kind of does think, well, actually, do they taste better at 41% ABV than they actually do at 46?
There's an accessibility as well, because again, there'll be a duty issue and pricing and things like that. Yeah. And like I say, you can buy this in Cuba at 41. You can buy Selection de Maestro at is it 46? I think is it 45. So you can buy it. It's 5. It's just really expensive and classed as like, whoa, this is super premium. Like, whoa, fancy pants. So it's not something, Cuba, like most Caribbean countries, it's not the most cash rich. It's not very affluent. So when you can buy a product for $4, right, and crack on, right? Where this in Cuba is going to be super expensive. Genuinely, I don't even actually know what this is on a shelf but this is $10. This is going to be a lot more than that. But yeah, it's down to you as a producer to do what you want.
I'm just fascinated just to see whether we start to go down the route where we get sort of Cuban rums, like cask strength Cuban rums, or I don't think we've, from the little bit of knowledge that I've got, I'm not sure we will, but that'll be fascinating.
I never got that one, but I think SBS did a Cuba. and that was higher ABV under the SBS label. And that was a much higher ABV because obviously what they do or what they don't do with it is they don't cut it if they don't have to, or because they want to do something different. So I'm pretty sure that was higher as well. I never got a chance to try that, unfortunately. But yeah, it'd be great for me anyway, just for my own pure curiosity. Certainly when I'm there, I'm like, I just want to try everything. Like, just give me it all.
And it's mad because, and I know this is not your brand, and I'm sorry for dropping it on here, but down at Rumfest, Eminente had their Aguardiente from there, and it was just the taste and Aguardiente, like, because that was the thing, that was the big thing that I saw from Rumfest this year. Everyone under the bar had their own distillates, if you know what, like Plantation had Vulcan. They're still the Vulcan still. They're sort of 65, 70% ABV under. And so this is the big thing coming out now of all these little brands going around Rumfest. They've all got the distillates. But to try that Aguardiente before it had been blended in age, you're just like, bloody hell, that is absolutely amazing.
It's a different flavor profile altogether.
Yeah. And you would kind of, in a roundabout, Big G's going to hate me for this. He's our, what's it called? Agricole lover in here. Geraint, you can see his comments in up.
Nothing wrong with that.
The Aguardiente that I was tasting down at Rumfest almost did remind me of that kind of agricole sugar, even though it's molasses, that sort of sugar caney distillate, if you like. And it was just wow, this is phenomenal stuff. Phenomenal.
Yeah, it is good. And like I said, we've got so certainly for next year, I will have stock in the UK, but not for sale, purely for educational purposes, shall we say, of Aguardiente, silver dry, of the aged, of the, so we'll have more.
Whoa, stop. Stop. Aguardiente, we got silver dry. What's that?
The silver dry, which is just, it's about 2.5 years, just filtered, clear, white rum, basically.
Right, okay.
And then we have a slightly aged version, which is about 3.5 years. Unfiltered.
Under what banner? Like
all under Black Tears.
Black Tears.
Yeah,
so it'll be clear tears.
All available in Cuba.
Wow.
Ready to walk into a store, you can buy all of these different products. But going back to your point with Rumfest. Now, I have a bottle here. We were at Rumfest with on the cask liquid marketing stand. I also have a sample bottle of the 8-year, and I was supposed to be at Rumfest with these products. However, I had a slight altercation. With a chop saw, which made. I didn't make it, unfortunately, and I was gutted, genuinely gutted. I just had to sit at home and watch everyone having a great time.
It was quite funny. It was quite
products under the counter, like you were saying, but sadly, the thing there, that's every cloud. I still have it, so when I'm out and about now, I can take it with me. So
it was quite funny because I was
doing some sort of Keith Lemon or whatever. I know from Leeds, but no, it's there for a reason. It's why I've worn a shirt, because it sort of covers it a little bit.
Yeah. It was quite funny because at one point I was with Lewis Hayes and Sean. Lewis Hayes Merchant House and owns that. Yeah, so I was with them and Sean and Distillery. That's when I was chatting to Henrik on the with you guys.
Yeah.
So he was trying to, because Sean didn't have, not really sort of studied Aguardiente, and Henrik was trying to educate Sean in Aguardiente. That was quite funny because obviously Sean's sort of in molasses world and proper distillation sort of world. So it's kind of this whole.
Well, it's still a molasses product, and it's still fermented and distilled. And obviously, it's just not aged. It's less refined.
Can you see Cuba? And again, this is probably, I don't know. I was going to say probably with on top of your knowledge, I don't know. But can you see, because Cuba grow sugarcane in abundance, can you say Cuba doing? Do you know what I'm asking? Are you going to see them doing like sugarcane juice instead of molasses, or?
Some actually can do a mixture of. Yeah. Some can do a mixture of. But again, Cuban rum law is it's a molasses product. Again, some guy in his backyard that's got access to crushing sugarcane. I'm pretty sure if he wants to make his own moonshine or whatever, he's not going to create a molasses out of that. It'll just ferment his sugarcane juice, right?
Wow.
So I'm sure it's there. But yeah, Cuban rum law is that it has to follow all of this sort of set regime, as it were. So at the moment, I'm not aware, certainly, of any pure sugarcane distillate rather than molasses distillate.
Interesting. There's
I know,
isn't it? Yeah, I know there's a couple sort of finished-ish, but there's a couple more slides on your. You've got what, 3 slides left? Is that any relevance on here?
Yeah, go back.
Let's just have a quick. Let's page 10, page 11.
Yeah, we've covered them. I think the next is just the range, no? I think.
Yeah, page 12.
Oh, so that's the 8. So that's a sneaky peek at the 8.
Oh, that's where I saw it.
yeah. So that's a sneaky peek at the 8. And did I put the rest of the range on there? I can't remember if I did.
There's one more page. So whatever this one is, there's that one.
There we go.
Saludos.
No, so I think we just put the 8 on there because the 8 will come for sale in the UK. But the Aguardiente Super Dry and I can't remember the name of the other one, but the slightly aged one won't be for sale at all, purely for presentation purposes, educational drinking purposes. But yeah, they won't be for sale. Whereas the 8-year, all being well, will land in Q1 next year. As you saw on this, well, I don't know if you did clock it on the slide, but there's only 4,200 bottles globally.
I did. I was going to say, obviously, one of those is for me, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we're only bringing in our allocation is our maximum allocation is only about 1,200 bottles.
That's all right. One of those. I'll have one of those. That's fine.
So
I just need one.
Yeah, I'm like me. So the bottle that I have my sample of, it's just some random horrible. Just there's just written on in hand, 8-year, but it's not even branded up or anything. So yeah, I can't even show you. There's no point in showing you the bottle, but it will look like that, but the label's slightly different. It is very good, and I'm not just saying that. It is very good.
Cool. I don't know whether this is going to affect my headphones. Have just died for some unknown reason, so I've come out the speaker now. So if there's any feedback or anything, people just let me know. There shouldn't be. It should be good, but
no, not for me.
Big G has put a funny question in here because obviously prices are going to change. How much will the 8 be?
So the hand on heart, I'm not sure. At the moment, we're still working out the pricing of it. It'll be somewhere similar to La Progressiva 13. It may be a little bit more because there's obviously less of it. So the production of this smaller batches obviously cost us more. But yeah, it won't be much more, to be honest. So yeah, we are trying. We haven't secured our allocation yet because we want the whole lot. We want the 1,200 if we can, but we haven't secured it yet. So yeah, once we've secured it, we can then work it all out. But yeah, it shouldn't be much more than the current one. But
cool.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
We shall secure a bottle for here.
Yeah. For educational drinking, it's fine.
Well, look, mate, I'm going to let you go because I'm fully aware it's a school night for you and you're back to work. So thank you so much for tonight. I've just fallen in love with Cuban rum the last sort of 4 or 5 months. I absolutely adore it because I know what you're saying about the ABV. I would love to try Cuban rums at higher ABV, but because there isn't none out there, that's my benchmark. So I've got 40%, but this stuff is just insane. It's just like proper. I've frozen now. Are people still all right? I've frozen on screen now. I don't know what's going on.
No, not for me. You're okay for me.
I can't hear that.
No, you're fine for me, Steve. You're not frozen.
I can't hear a damn thing now. I don't know what's going on. Pete, if you can hear me, that's awesome. I'm going to let you go. I can't hear absolutely anything.
No way.
So I'll sign off with you, Pete, so I can do that there. Thank you, mate, and I'll chat to you tomorrow. Right. Right, people, I don't know whether you can hear me. I can't hear. Right, guys in the comments, if you can still hear me, can you just give me a thumbs up? Because everything's just died here for some reason. Okay. Oh, you're good. Brilliant. Right, so let's just take that off for a second. And right, remove source and remove guest. Brilliant. Right, that's cool. That's there. I'm looking pretty crystal clear on that. Hear you even. Lovely jubbly. Wow, what did we think to that? So in the comments, brilliant. Cheers, peeps. So in the comments below, right, standard video talk. In the comments, which was your favourite out of the two? I did see Pam and Karen. I did see both of your comments that you could quite happily sip those neat, which I'm quite impressed by as well. So yeah, sorry, it's just I'm sidetracked because the screen has properly frozen in front of me, but I can see the little monitor beside me, so I know I'm all right there. So I might just do that. Hang on, if I do that, bear with me and do. No, it's frozen. It's frozen for me. I know you can see me. We're cool. So Pam, it was Black Tears. That's cool. Who's this? I can't see this. I'm gonna have to put your name up higher. Ishman. The son brought me a bottle of Isla. Ooh, Isla del Tesoro Cuban Rum. I've never heard of that. Seen the price. Dare I open it? I don't know. Never heard of that. Rachel's Black Tears. Philip, brilliant info there. Pete is an absolute. As I say, Pete won't know this, but I've known of Pete for Christ. I dread to think 14. Everything to me is like in chunks of 5, but I've maybe 15 years, but somewhere definitely over 10 years because of Cellar Trends. Cellar Trends back in the day were one of the huge Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? I've got a funny feeling I'm back. And it looks pretty damn... I can hear myself, so I know I'm back. So I think it is back. Yeah, okay. I love it. I get like 15 messages from you like saying we're back. Yes, I know we're back. It takes one of you. It takes one of you. Right. Wow. I think it's the servers that I use. So I use Restream, the software, and I think it's Restream's end that might be sort of playing because of the thunderstorms and all that earlier. I've got a funny feeling it's that and not me because everything just kind of went there. Right. Damn cancels hot girls. Yeah, what are these hot girls? There's some moderate. You lot are moderators. Don't forget. You can kind of sort them out. So where the hell were we? I'm even in crystal flicking clear. Yeah, amazing. Right, we were going to chat about something. Bugger is back. Thanks, Pam. Love you, Pam. Pam is the most high maintenance member that I have. She's always in the DMs, like every day. Can you do this? Can you do that? Right. Probably you've been blurry all night. What I might actually do, people, is because obviously this is recording as well on the servers, and if the server has recorded it at a better definition, I'll take a look at it as soon as the stream's finished. I might actually delete the stream and then republish the upload it and republish it. We'll see how it goes anyway. We'll see. So let's talk a bit about Cuban rum. And I want to know people's opinions. Is Connor still here as well? I'd love a little chat to Connor. Yeah, Connor's here. There we go. So this is Connor. If you haven't subscribed to Connor as well, you need to go and subscribe to Connor. Connor, I would love to hear your viewpoint on Cuban rums, but I would love to hear everyone's viewpoints on Cuban rums because I've gone down this sort of rabbit hole a little bit. And Pam, I think it was you. It may have been Karen. I totally get that sort of nail varnish acetone kind of thing off the glass of the Progressiva, which is kind of fascinates me a little bit. But the black tears is like massive vanilla notes on the glass and the black tears. So yeah, I'll be honest, that's kind of thrown me now. I don't actually know what to do. And I haven't got any of the Stratford sodas in the fridge ready to go, I don't think. I have got some, what have I got? I've got some ginger ale. I stupidly, I'll tell you what I would do. I'll tell you what I did pick up. I picked up some of this from Waitrose yesterday. So I'm going to be rocking that out with a few rums to see how that goes. We were chatting about pink ting the other day. So this is because obviously we can't get pink ting in the UK. I'm kind of excited to try that a little bit. Right, true Cuban rum has a real distinctive taste. I want to try, right, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little 3-way aged off. The reserva is, so Cube is about 10 years. And the selection, I don't know what the selection is. I don't think the selection actually gives an age statement. I can't think. I'll tell you what I can do. If anyone knows, I'll tell you what, this is homework for some of you. Anyone think you didn't know it was Sunday? to be honest, Pam, I saw Pete's presentation and I thought we might be here 2 or 3 hours. Right. So what I'm going to do a little side-by-side tasting. Cheers, Nick. Thanks for coming. I'm going to do a little side-by-side tasting of the aged Cuban rums. Okay. Oh, yeah. That's what we're going to do. That is what we're going to do. Who was that? Who said that? Crack out the Cube. Someone said crack out the Cube. This is what we're going to do, isn't it? Right. So, I just want to sort of see the variances between these. This is going to be interesting, isn't it? This is going to be fascinating. Right, here we go. Here we go. So, what's it called? Cuban Reserva. So Reserva is a straight 10-year-old. I'm pretty damn sure of that. The Havana Cuban barrel proof, whatever you want to call it. Someone needs to get on the old Google and see what Havana Cuban barrel proof is. I think it's 8 to 12, I think, but don't hold me to that. And we're going to go for this sexy little bottle, which is, where are we? What, 250 years old? Oh, right. So let's go here. There we go. Right. So the old cube. Oh no, the old cube can sit there. So differences on the old blends. Where we go? Drunk Mind, Jim. Jim, I sorry, I was going to say hello to you earlier. Jim's a new member. Thanks for hanging around, Jim. 10 to 15. Cheers, Tom. Right. So that's the Progressiva. It's kind of really, I'm going to call it really mellow, really light. I get plenty of vanilla, plenty of dried fruits, little subtle hint of coconut off there. Not too much, but just a little tiny hint of coconut. Toffee, caramel, but it's that lighter. It's not cloying. It's that lighter end of stuff. So that's the Progressiva. Right, let's have some water. The Cube. Now, the Cube Reserva, 10-year-old. This is a feisty 40%. This really is a feisty 40%. It's got much more. Absolutely delicious. I mean, I get that sort of stone fruit apricot vibes off that. Not as much as vanilla, but I get more wood barrel aging off it. And I'm going to say feisty. I still don't think that's as feisty as Havana 7-year-old. I think that is a much more mellower, smoother, I hate that word, but rounded Cuban rum. This is absolutely delicious, this Cube 10-year-old. What's that? Can anyone hear the word coconut and without thinking of Karen? Did Karen? I'm assuming Karen got plenty of coconut off that. No. Triple barrel age. It's funny. Also, I can smell off that now. It's the acetone nail polish. As soon as she put that in my head. Right. I was previously called Havana Steve. So, oh yeah. Sorry, we should put that. Hang on, I'm just going to put, because the other's comment is like gone off screen. This boys and girls, just in case you haven't realised, is Havana Steve. He's just reincarnated himself with his real name. So this is Havana Steve from the last sort of 6 to 8 months. All right. So that is who that is. Right. Right. Really strong mouthfeel on the Cube 10 with a nice long aftertaste. Yeah. I mean, compared to that, it is proper feisty, but compared to the Havana 7-year-old, no. But I love that. It's kind of stone fruit's there, but almost the second taste is that sort of toffee, honey, but unmistakably light. You cannot. I was going to say you can't mistake Cuban rums. You probably could. You know, you could probably get them confused. Well, lighter column still rums, but it's just this thing about Cuban rums. They're just delicious, absolutely delicious. Right, the Havana Cuban. Sod selection de Maestros. It's always going to be Cuban. It's another one with a funny label. There we go. It's always going to be Cuban barrel proof. Always. That for me is the star of the show in the Havana range. I do love that. It's not as nice as Reserva. It's almost like more cloyingly sweet. And I've just realised something. Wow, I've just realised something that I never saw before. Oh no, it has. It has. Sorry, I couldn't see the Cuban what do you call it, warranty. It is. It's there. Because I was going to say this tastes a lot sweeter. It tastes like it's got something added to it, but the Cuban seal is there, so it hasn't. It's just how it's been blended. I mean, it's delicious, but hands down, I prefer the Reserva. Hands down on that. Right, let's go for this sexy little beast. The Cube, the 250-year-old Cube. Right. I mean, this is gorgeous. You are kind of talking an extra 120, 130 pound a bottle. I mean, it is gorgeous. You can't compare it with these. You really can't. But the harshest one out of the lot is that, and I still really like that. Pam, she didn't get coconut on the lab. Really? And you must be able to get, you must get coconut on that, Pam. Karen, surely. Surely, hang on. Karen's the coconut queen. Surely, there's loads of coconut on that. It's dried fruit, and there's no other tropical fruit on that. For me, it's just coconut. It's dried fruit, that sort of raisiny, rich. That's a good word. It's that sort of raisiny dried fruit sort of vibes, but with this sort of hint of coconut. That is delicious. I love that. Absolutely love that. See, this is interesting about the Aguardiente, because I knew the Aguardiente was the rum before it's been aged. So it's Aguardiente is the distillate up to 2 years old. But what I've learned about Aguardiente in the last sort of 3-4 months is that brands get super passionate about their Aguardiente because it is that base rum. It is that liquid that comes off the still. And I swear that it was a legal requirement in Cuba that Aguardiente had to come off at a minimum of 75% ABV. So for it to come off at 72, 74 is new to me. I didn't realise that. I thought it was 75% ABV. But we touched on this in the stream, but to kind of compare that to, I'm just going to say it, Bacardi. You know, Bacardi continuous, I haven't even got it behind the bar now. Let's go Don Q. Sort of continuous column still. And these are column still, of course they are, but continuous column still, where you're talking rum coming off this still at high 80s, 90% ABV. You'll never get anything higher than 95. I think that's kind of where column stills sort of max out. Bearing in mind, right, this is the big difference between column still and pot still. Pot stills will max out at about 75, 76, 77, 78% ABV. I don't think I've heard of a pot still coming off at 80%. So you're talking, you're even talking 60s with pot still. Whereas column stills, you are really, really high, and you have to rein it in. You have to use a certain amount of plates and really rein that column still in to bring it to get like a 70%. Otherwise, your column still is just going to be 80s, 90s. So that is the big difference between pot and column. Without the actual base part of it, the still itself, creating a different sort of style of rum. And then you've got all the fermentation and molasses and all that making a big difference as well. But that's the kind of point I want to make about Cuban rums, because I think if you went down the Dominican Republic, the Puerto Rico kind of rabbit hole, I think you would find rums that have come off the stills a lot higher than 75% ABV. Especially when it comes to stuff like that. I don't know. This is just a suspicion that I've kind of got on there. Stuff like the Barcello, for instance, it's kind of, don't know. Dominican would probably be one I would look at next when I've sort of finished with Cuba. But I'm just enjoying Cuba so much. Right, Pam. Thanks for coming, Pam. See you later. All I get, Karen. All I get from the Progressiva is oak and a cane juice kind of taste. That's interesting. Stephen, if you signed up for. If you've signed up for, yeah, it's going to be interesting talking to Becky next week actually, because I don't know how. Hang on, where's Bottle Kills? They're down here. We haven't got the aged Old Mother Hunt. We've got the silver and the coffee and chocolate coming from Becky next week, and you've got a little bit of coconut. But yeah, distilled in Scotland. This, I mean, the Progressiva is about as oaky as. There's a bit there. Like, I would say, if we're gonna hide that, if we're gonna kind of compare that, that's about as oaky as Bounty. There's really not much oak or barrel aging on that at all. Like minimal, bare minimal. It's like soft and light. Right, let's scroll back up here. 1870s, lush. We sit down. I get citrus off the Progressiva. I'm not sure about citrus. It's definitely a medium long finish. It's definitely not a. See, this is the thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm quite a big fan of Bacardi for what they are. Let's just take the Bacardi 8-year-old. The Bacardi 8, all right, a little bit sweeter, but it has got a semi-decent finish on it. Not long, but it's got a semi. You know, you've had it a couple of minutes later. Whereas something like the Havana really does kind of fade super quickly for me personally. Interesting. For those eagle eyes amongst you, you'll notice I've had a little bit of a shuffle about behind the bar as well. Right, numbers aren't dwindling massively on here, so unless people want me to do something specific, because I know quite a few of the regulars aren't here tonight, I'm quite happy to do something specific. If you've got any questions, whether it's about Cuban rum or whatever, kind of hit me up in the comments now. I'm just going to pop that away. I'm doing that. It's quite interested as well about the whole Solera blending. I've not heard that term before, Solera blend. Well, I have, but not in recent times. And when you think about it, Solera blending is Solera blended. You know, when you think about it in those terms, 90% of what I've got behind the bar here is Solera blended because it isn't single cask. I wouldn't have called it Solera blended. That's a new term. But yes, Stephen, have you tried the Eminente 3? Absolutely glorious stuff. That was the I spent about 20 minutes with those guys. Hopefully we will get them on probably in January now. They had, I forget what they actually call their other Eminente, the aged one. Is it 7, 8? I forget what they actually call it. Delicious stuff. And the Aguardiente that they had on their stand are amazing. Absolutely amazing. And that's kind of what I was. It's not agricole, but it was very, very tasty, almost sugar cane-esque rum. The Aguardiente, really delicious stuff. And I've got a funny feeling that was 62%. I'm pretty sure there was 62. The plantation guys had Vulcan, and they had a 62. I'm pretty sure Fads had a 70%er as well. So the distillate's coming off Vulcan. So Vulcan is the West Indies rum distillery main still. That was pretty special. But the Eminente, because I got quite friendly with them because they were sort of dead opposite the Craft Rum Club as well. stand where I kind of sort of spent a bit of time. 7 is the Eminente. Yeah, absolutely delicious. Love Eminente as well. And I think they've got another rum coming to market very soon as well. I think there's a third Eminente coming really, really soon. That's that. Let's put those there. Right, any other questions? Orange, have you tried that? Right, that rum drinker. That's Connor, isn't it? That rum drinker, yes. Solera blending seems so obvious, but in hindsight, yet completely escapes me. Yeah, I think that's the thing. I just think, you know, obviously as a brand, obviously Master Seal, young Richard Seal, is not going to refer to that Dawley's 5-year-old as Solera blended, but it's got 7 and 8-year-old rums in it, and I think it has actually got an higher aged rum in it than that. So when you're kind of looking at it like that, it's a term. I can see why Solera blended is a term that's being thrown out there. It's not a term that I would probably use because we're not used to using it. It's just a blended rum. Is there any difference between a Solera blended rum and a blended rum? Not really. But it's a fascinating take, isn't it? It's kind of when you dumb stuff right down and get rid of all the marketing BS, it's kind of fascinating to see, you know, the nuts and bolts. There's so many things that brands do or say to throw you kind of off the scent and make you think that their rum is superior, when in actual fact, you know, it's just the sort of same processes. So it does fascinate me. Have I tried Legendario? I've tried one of them. I've tried 2 of them. I've tried the Elixir as well, which is a liqueur. I haven't got the. Where is it? Here it is. I've got the Cuban Elixir, if I could get to it. So elixirs are a big thing in Cuba, and I was half expecting Pete to mention an elixir that there was coming. Elixirs are kind of like their weaker sort of punch liqueur type drinks. This is delicious. I still haven't. Oh, that's the unopened one. Where's the open one? I've got an open bottle here somewhere. There it is. Boom. You know, I've got 2. We've got 2 elixirs down there. This one. I still haven't fathomed out what I actually get off this elixir. To be fair, I still get, it's supposed to be fruit, but I still get sort of chocolatey coffee notes off this. Fascinating stuff, elixirs. So I've tried the Legendario, and I've tried the Legendario, I think it's a 3, isn't it? The clear. I haven't tried that. I know I'm pretty sure they've got a 7 or an 8. And I haven't tried that. See, I still get chocolate and coffee off this. I don't get fruit. It's bizarre because it's a fruit liqueur. Maybe I don't know. Maybe a little bit. Perhaps we need to do a taste along with this. Perhaps that would be a funny one. I know I sent it to a few people. Hang on, what's going on? Here we go. I know we did send that. I did send that to a few people. I know a few people have tried it, but it's definitely sweeter. Has got fruit. It has got fruit notes to it, but it's not. You know, it's not like a passion fruit liqueur or a mango liqueur or a strawberry liqueur or anything like that. I really can't put my finger on it. They're fascinating, and the Legendario ones similar, but does go off on a different kind of a different vibe. But I just off the nose, I just get chocolate and coffee, and yet it's not. It's absolutely 100% fruit liqueur, Cuban rum with fruit. Who we got here? Welcome, Connor. Right, Claire's here. Hello, Claire. Sorry if you've been here before. Jim, Saturday was so busy. Sunday not too bad. Oh, you were talking about Run Fresh. Sorry, I hadn't seen Claire. If Claire's here. Hello, Claire. Right. I'm missing a few comments here. Would it be difficult if it turned up? Would it be difficult if I turned up to Rumfest with my guard dog in the future? If that's what Claire's answered, I would. It depends the feedback from this year. I've got a sneaky suspicion that they're going to stick with that format, as in the Saturday Sunday, because normally it's on one day, with trade on the Friday, and then Spiced Rum Show on the Sunday. So it's a different format this year. You've got to wait and see whether they're sticking to that format. If they are, I would totally avoid Saturday. Absolutely, totally avoid Saturday. It was just carnage on Saturday. Fun, but not fun. It was just mental. It was just too mental on Saturday. But yeah, Sunday much more relaxed. Sunday brought the proper rum drinkers out, whereas Saturday brought out the people maybe not so used to drinking rum, if that's the right thing to say. Right, Jim. What's Jim? Would I be allowed on Mondays? And by the way, my dog is called Legend. Yeah, we can have a word. I'll have a word with. We'll see. Look, if you're still with us, Jim, next year, I'll have a word on your behalf with. Not that I'd need to, but I'm sure we can swing something on definitely on trade day. If trade day is Monday, I reckon we can swing something. Right. Who's this? El Neo. El Neo is selection to buy straight as a 10-year-old. Yeah, it'll obviously be a blend because there's no actual physical age statement on the rum. So whether the minimum age in that is 10 or not, I don't know. But if you're saying the minimum age on that is 10, brilliant. But I know it's a blend of that. I actually thought it was an 8. I thought the minimum rum in there was an 8-year-old. But because what tends to happen when brands don't have an age statement on their rum, the majority of rums will be a lot higher, but there will be a lesser aged rum in there. So for me, it makes no sense for that to be actually the minimum rum in there 10, because they would have called it a 10. Whereas if it is 8, which I suspect it is, there's no point in putting an 8 on the bottle because they've got to have a 7-year-old. So you've only got to step up of 1 year, if you know what I mean. So I've got a sneaky suspicion there is some 8-year-old in the Cuban barrel proof, but I don't know. It's the whole reason why there's not an age statement on there. Some quite a few brands work like that. Very few brands actually don't have an age statement and are actually really old. In that case, the brands that don't have an age statement as such will typically have a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old rum in the blend. It's the whole thing. It's the same with Plantation XO. The whole reason it's called XO and nothing else is because there is, I think it's a 5-year-old in that as well. I think it's the 5. But yes, they've got 12, they've got 18-year-old rums in there, but they don't want to call it a 5-year-old rum. So right. Right, here we go. See, I love it. All the chats are coming in now. Marketing. Solera, continuous aging and blending at the same time. Can you just mix 2 bottles in effect to? Yeah, probably someone has already answered that, but yeah, I mean, all Solera aging is basically a barrel where you draw rum, or a collection of 2 or 3 different barrels. You draw rum from the final barrel, and you top up from, say if you've got 3 barrels, barrel. Right, these are barrels. So this is Solera aging, barrel. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So to get your bottle, empty bottle, you fill up from barrel 3, but then to fill that up, you use barrel 2, and then to fill barrel 2 up, you use barrel 1. So you're all the time pouring. That is Solera aging. Whereas Solera blending, this whole new term that's just appeared tonight, which just makes complete sense, is that you'd have barrel 1, which is, say, hang on, distilled in, where should we go? Distilled in 90, let's go 2005. So it's distilled in 2005, distilled in 2010, distilled in 2015. Single casks. Well, Solera blending just means blending. You'd blend that, and you'd get a collective. So I love Pete. I've got a lot of Pete if you're still watching. I'm just going to throw this out there. You know, I wouldn't pay too much attention to Solera blending because every single rum that is a blended rum would be Solera blended. Solera aging is a very different thing. Okay, so it's a great term. Not sure, you know. I'm definitely not going up to Foursquare stand and going, oh yeah, Solera, yeah, you've done well there, Solera blended 5-year-old. I like what you did. I'm definitely not going up to their stand and saying that. You could argue that's exactly what it is, but I ain't going to say it. Right. Rum Malata. Yeah, that's another. What's the other one? Right. Oh, Saucan. Steve, you're not. It's Saucan, isn't it? SAOCAN. That's the other Cuban rum that used to be quite popular. And I haven't seen that for ages. I used to love that. Manchester, see, Claire, it's Sal Claire. Claire's already tipsy. Manchester Rumfest is June, July. It was June this year. It's they're going for July if he can, but he hasn't set a date yet. So it's not March. Claire's thinking of NRB, which is Northern Restaurant and Bar Show, which is March. But Manchester Rumfest is 100% June, July. It was June this year. I think Dave's trying to get July, but he hasn't set a date yet. Hopefully it's set in the next couple of weeks. That's that. So, hang on. What? David, Solera means floor, though, right? The bottom barrels. I don't actually, to be fair, I don't actually know what the actual term Solera, the actual translation of Solera, but Solera aging, as I say, barrel 3, barrel 2, barrel 1. You distill your rum. Hang on, which way is the best to describe it? So you've got full rum here before we distill a rum. So you've got full barrels of rum here. To get a bottle, to bottle your rums, you take from barrel 3, which would be, in the old days, you know, this does kind of look like that. You've got a row of barrels like that, you know, then a row of barrels on top, and then a barrel on, back in the old days. It doesn't work like that these days. You know, you've got barrels in certain parts of the warehouse, you know, barrels in other parts of the warehouse. So you've got barrel 3 to 1. To get your bottle, you fill up with barrel 3. To fill that up, you go with barrel 2. To fill that up, you go for barrel 1. And then to fill that up, you've got your fresh rum that's been distilled. So your fresh rum's going in there. So that is Solera aging. What Solera actually translates into, it might possibly mean ground. I don't know. I do not know. Right, where are we going? NRB is trade. Tom can be, cheers Tom, there we go. Right, can be translated as floor or bottom. Yeah, so okay, so barrel 3 in that sense would be the bottom barrel of the rum. Right, we caught up there. I'm going to call it quits there tonight. Numbers are dwindling. I'm going to call it quits. What's happening next week? Oh, Becky, Old Mother Hunt is next week. Stratford Sodas. Oh, Katie and Dan, they're sending me DMs. They're obviously not on the live. I'm going to call it quits here this week. I'm going to see what happened to this live stream because obviously I've been crystal clear at my end all night. And so I might have to quickly delete the stream and re-upload it from the recording here. We shall see. But yeah, thank you for tonight's live show. Next week should be really, really fun. Your samples are going out in the post tomorrow. They've all been drammed up. So yeah, thank you for watching. As always, And we shall see you really, really soon. Well, I'll see you, mate. I'll see a lot of you in the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, I was going to say something else then. I'm assuming all 29 of you that are still watching are my hardcore fans. Stay tuned for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. All I'm going to say. Pam's going to hate that. Pam's going to hate that. And I'm really sorry. I don't care. Right. On that note, thank you very much for watching. I will see you.